Congressman Reyes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, I would like to associate myself with the comments of many of our colleagues here that are appreciative of your service and the leadership that you show, and I also agree with Congressman Romer that you are the exact three individuals that are going to be very instrumental in helping us address this challenge. And I'd like to start out by telling all of you, in particular Director Tenet and my colleagues that referred to the Homeland Defense legislation that is pending. I wanted to reference also General Hayden's comments about not having to be reminded about Arabic linguists, and that we have a role to play in terms of determining where the lines of privacy rights versus government's need to protect the homeland are, and that you reference Director Tenet's comment that we need to get it right, and I absolutely agree with that. And Mr. Chairman, I voted for Homeland Defense, but I will not support Homeland Defense if the National Police Force Amendment is in there. I will not support Homeland Defense if we don't have the protections of civil service and labor in there as well. And I won't support it because of a concern that I've expressed to you gentlemen, and that is diversity. And I go back 33 years ago when I first came back from Vietnam after serving my country, was hired by the Border Patrol. There were only 3 of us that were Hispanics in that class, and had we not had the protections of civil service and labor rights, I would not have had a 26-and-a-half-year career in the U.S. Border Patrol. And I just wrote a letter to the President this week telling him that the flexibility that he seeks is one that I think will doom minorities in the 21st century from participating in Homeland Defense, in the FBI, in the Border Patrol, and in all the federal agencies. And I say that because of my experience. So I support the Homeland Defense agency, but again, will not support it if we don't have those kinds of protections. I was intrigued by a comment that you made, Director Tenet, in terms of the alerts and the information that's out there, and the fact that we have to sensitize our country to understand that the threat is real. We've had testimony here that has told us that the safest place for a terrorist is in this country because of all the protections that we have, and your reference, General, to bin Laden crossing the border and then all of a sudden getting the protections. But I strongly believe that that's what has kept us as the best experiment in democracy that we're being attacked for. So it reminds me a lot, Director Tenet, of the alerts. For 13 months I was in Vietnam. It became a joke that if we were told that we were on red alert, that our base was going to be hit, you could bet that we weren't going to get mortared or rocketed that night. But if we weren't on alert, we'd get hit. So my question to each of you, and I don't know, General, I also want to include you in here, is regarding threat assessment. I know that Director Mueller, last week, the committee received a copy of the Justice Department IG's report where it noted that the FBI has never performed a comprehensive written assessment of the risk that terrorists present to this country. And I'm wondering, are you engaged in that now? And also, Director Tenet, what is your role in that process? And also, General Hayden, if you would, I know that 5 minutes is not long enough to cover all the things, but I want to make sure that we're not going to get in a situation where we treat the symptoms and we don't treat the disease. And so, if you would address threat assessment.
Sir, we're preparing just such an estimate that the FBI and NSA will be playing into, I think, in process in the next few weeks. So we will have that kind of a comprehensive judgment. We'll take Bob's information, obviously the other intelligence information, and have it in a package. And obviously, given the importance, we'll update it regularly.
Will that will that include recommendations of how to fight the threat? Because, you know, as someone in Congress after spending 26 and a half years in federal law enforcement protecting the border, I don't want our country to have to deal with martial law. Everybody's worried about the sniper in this region right now, and they're talking about bringing in the military assets and all of these other things. But I think terrorists win when we subject ourselves to martial law and those kinds of issues that I mentioned before in my opening comments. So will that include?
Sir, we won't typically put policy solutions in the estimate, but I'm sure we can then use it as a vehicle with Homeland Security Council and sit down and walk through it and see what additional measures that may be required as a result of what we can tell.
Let me just, one thing you mentioned about the use of military resources, and you mentioned it with regard to our current investigation into the sniper, and let me just say that the resources are limited to support in terms of giving us a capability that we did not have, but law enforcement remains law enforcement, and the military is not playing a role in the law enforcement function on the ground.
I just repeat what I said in my prepared statement. One of the charges I gave to our workforce is we're going to keep America free by making Americans feel safe again. I know there will be unbearable pressures to limit our civil liberties if we have repeated the events of 11 September.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.